Welcome to UltraCycling Magazine.
Well, hello, everybody. Lee Kreider here with UltraCycling Magazine. I see it still says Ohio Ram Show down there. I got to change that. But Jim is not with us here. He's working somewhere, and he's on the road. You know, this guy works all kinds of crazy hours, and he does so much for us. And so he thought he might be able to get in here, but he's not with us now, so you'll have to stick it out with just little old me here this morning. And this is the UltraCycling Magazine show about ultracycling, obviously. And we are here because of the wonderful people who operate the time stations here in Ohio. Time stations 41 in Oxford, 42 in Blanchester, and 43 in Chillicothe. And of course, we want to thank Mike, the sign man, who puts all these signs out along the road here during the race across America. Appreciate him a great deal. We want to make sure that all of you follow us on Facebook. Give us a like there, and be subscribed to us on YouTube. We get new subscribers all the time, and we appreciate that a great deal. Want to remind you of our new URL for our website, ucm.bike. That'll take you there. It looks similar to the old one, but actually that'll get you there. And we want to remember that ucm.bike, because some of our information that we're going to talk about is there. Well, the registration is open now for the Coal Country Roubaix that Joe Lawhorn is running. The URL to get to it and register is there, but that's long and hard. So remember, ucm.bike, you go there, look at the show notes right below this show, and there'll be a link there. You just click on it to register. And we want to give a shout out to John Hoopengarner, our friend up there in Northwest Ohio, who was the very first person to register. Good, John was right on top of it. I haven't checked to see what the registration looks now, but we hope that a lot of you will be able to do that. And we do have a little piece of video here from the mayor of Lisbon, Ohio.
Hi, I'm Peter Wilson. I'm the mayor of Lisbon, Ohio, and we're going to be the host village or town for the 2024 inaugural event of Coal Country Roubaix. We are so pleased that Joe Lawhorn chose Lisbon to do this racing event. Lisbon is the second oldest village in Ohio. We're on several bicycle trails already, hiking trails, bicycle trails. We're have a historic downtown. We're also the county seat. However, like many municipalities in our county, we're struggling economically. We need to attract fresh investors, fresh businesses, what have you. And Joe came to us with this idea, and we are really optimistic that we're going to make Lisbon the Emporia, Kansas of Ohio. It's really a cool idea, and we're behind Joe 100%. The idea is the first year, Joe, organizers are estimating that we could have up to 1,000 participants. That's fantastic. Lisbon is a village of 2,600 people. So this influx of visitors, we want to show you what Lisbon has to offer, besides offering you world-class dirt and gravel bike riding. Thank you.
And thank you, Peter, for that. Welcome to the village of Lisbon, Ohio. And again, if you'd like to learn more about that, register ucm.bike. Go down to the show notes right below this video, and you'll see a link to the registration there. Joe has been working really, really hard on this, and we hope that he will be able to really pull off a great event. Just a little piece of news. We understand that, and we want our love and care to go out to our friends John and Nancy Guth. If you haven't heard, Nancy is ill. Nancy is the greatest ultra cyclist you'll probably ever get to know. I mean, she's done just about everything. John is great as well, but it's Nancy that has made all the records. She is the World UltraCycling Association has named the woman honoree after her, the Nancy Guth Award, and she was the first recipient of it. We understand from what I've been able to read, she posted it on Facebook that she has some balance problems, can't ride outside anymore, can only ride on her trainer. And John has to give her some attention as she is a little bit unstable. Our best to John and Nancy. They've been on the show a number of times. God love you. We hope that things go well for you. Upcoming now is the kind of last event of 2023, big event, the Ram Qualifier, is November 25th, the Deccan Cliffhanger in India. We hope to be able to get some kind of report from there. We will try to do that. Now, next week, we are not going to be having a live show. It's Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, and we decided we want to take that off, give ourselves a little break. But for those of you who just can't stand the idea of going a whole week without the UltraCycling magazine, we will run a repeat of one of our best shows. And actually, we're going to run the repeat we did with Isa Pulver, who was the Race Across America overall winner this year. We had a great show with her. That'll run automatically. You won't be able to make any comments, but be around for that. Now, we've got some people viewing out there, so be sure to make your comments so we can post them here for our wonderful guests. On the 3rd of December, we are going to have Dr. Vince Marcel of Infinity Seats. So many of you ride on Infinity Seats, and he's going to be here. So be sure to have your questions you might have for him, comments about his seats. He's going to be talking about seats, how to adjust them, all the things that have to do with Infinity Seats. And so if you live in a part of the world where you won't be able to watch a live show, go ahead and post the questions or send them to us here, and we will pass them on to him to try to get some of your questions answered. That's December 3rd, 2 weeks from today. Now, that having been said, let's get our guest on here at long last. What happened? Here we go.
Hi, Lee.
We finally made it. Lesa Ashford over in Brisbane, Australia. How are you today?
Yep. Tonight I'm really well, actually. Doing great.
Well, we have you on here because you have accomplished something rather spectacular. The first woman to set a world record circumnavigating Australia.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one. I don't think there's too many other longer ones.
How many men have done that? You know?
Well, there've been a few records around Australia, and there've been 2 men who have gone through. Like there've been about 10 attempts. 2 men have died doing it. There's been one guy who had 4 unsuccessful attempts, and the ones I know recently are Dave Alley and Reed Anderton. So Dave Alley cycled it, and he also ran it. He ran around Australia as well. So,
Okay.
I'm not doing that one.
Okay. So how far is it circumnavigating Australia?
It is 14,100 kilometres, or 14,200, depending on which road you take down towards Melbourne. Yeah, so I'm not sure how much that is in miles, but I'd done 10,000 kilometres and then still had the distance of Ram to do. So I'd gone up and over and come back through Western Australia and still had Ram to do when I got to the Western Australia border.
That's about almost, but not quite 3 Rams.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
But I think Ram is about 5,000 kilometers. We're trying to convert all of our American friends here to talking, real measurements, not this funny stuff we use here in the United States. But it's kind of a hard go to get everybody changed.
It's certainly hardcore for my crew, because from a crew point of view, to get people to be able to crew for that length of time, they're generally older and retired. So from a point of view of fatigue, I was really worried about my crew more than anything else, just to make sure that they were coping with what Australia throws at you.
How large a crew did you have? How many vehicles, etc.?
I had, well, that changed. I had 19 crew in total and 6 crew at any one time. There was a massive bridge that went out, and when that bridge, called the Fitzroy Crossing Bridge, went out, we could not get the vehicles across. We had an RV, a normal standard car, a van and a trailer. We got them to the river on one side and then had 4-wheel drives hired from the other side. My daughter back in Brisbane had to even contact the hire company with those vehicles to have tow balls fitted to the back of those, because that wasn't standard practice. And their company was in New Zealand, so she had to contact New Zealand, get tow balls get crew flown over to the other side of Australia, drive those vehicles to one side of the river. Then we had to ferry everything over at the river, and then put the vehicles that I had that were on the left, had crew to then drive them back, put them on trucks, head them down the centre of Australia, across the Nullarbor, back up Western Australia. So logistics was huge, and getting that into plan in places where there was no cellular coverage meant that I had to finish some days early so we could get to cellular coverage just to even put it into place. It's big.
This sounds
expensive. Expensively.
But,
it's huge.
Pulling that off, and I assume this was not in a location where you had a lot of facilities available.
Virtually none. At where it went at Fitzroy Crossing, it had flooded. This is why the bridge was out. It was flooded, and the people had nothing. In fact, when I went across the barge, because they had the barge come back up, the people on either side, some Indigenous groups, were hugging and crying, because it's the first time they'd seen their family from the other side of the river when the barge they came across, because they couldn't even get across the river. This is crocodile infested. You can't swim. You can't do anything else. And they hadn't seen their family, so they're hugging and crying. There'd been 2 men who'd gone around with motorcycles trying to get across, and they'd gone to properties and had a helicopter lift their motorcycles across the river. So this was huge. We actually got our trailer across because Western Australia main roads helped us get that trailer across, and that made a huge difference because we had food and and everything there. It was just culling it down to the bare bones that we needed to exist.
Well, that brings up another question. Now, I'm not that familiar with Australia. I know where it is on the map, but we've had quite a few guests from Australia on the show over the years. But my sense is that there's a lot of places where supplies is not easy to come by. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This is remote. This couple of my crew didn't even know that. Well, they were expecting the Sahara Desert, but it's just bushland and nothing. There is nothing. In fact, it was quite horrible, because in some places we would expect, okay, in 300 kilometers we're going to have a rest stop there. In the next 200 we'll have something there. In 50 kilometers we'll have this petrol station there. And some of those places were no longer. COVID had wiped them out. There was a sign with a cross across it that said no. and basically there was just nothing there. There were even signs with men that had a man that had been missing, and he's part of the the insidious part of what's happened in the country as well, that some people they've disappeared. It's remote. It's very remote.
Well, this isn't anything like that, but I've said crossing Montana and North Dakota and places like that on a bicycle. There are towns out there on the plains that exist only in the minds of Rand McNally. When you get there, there's no real place.
Yeah.
Well, there was once, but there's
exactly.
just empty buildings. Yeah,
Correct.
I'm sure that that's even more so what you were dealing with.
Yeah.
Well,
and in extreme heat conditions too. Not just I mean, I've been across from the Death Valley, and it's like that in some places, just different plants. It's very remote, yeah, and very much like Death Valley.
Well, you talked about crocodiles swimming in the river. Let me ask you this: did you ride? What kind of time did you put in? Did you ride at night? What kind of schedule did you keep when things are going well?
Yeah, well, we started off, and I went counterclockwise for a reason, because that meant that we would do the longest stretches between capital cities first and keep the biggest distances there. Also helped with the wind. I was putting in maybe 7 to 12 hours days, depended on breaks. The first when I went through Queensland, the first 2 weeks to 3 weeks, it rained more times than not. And then we got it. Before I left, there was so much talk about, are you going to get through? Are you going to get through? Because we had just had significant rain that had continued for a month longer than was expected. So there were roads that were not open, and it just kept raining and just kept raining. So I was just basically wet for the first month. And not only that, but with these rivers rising and we knew that this Fitzroy crossing was always going to be a problem. What else? So it just depended with how many stops I needed for extra water and my crew changes. When we got through to Northern Territory, I actually got through one of the sections where there was the road had been closed, and they opened that road, and nobody else really knew it was being opened. So I had the highway to myself, and we pushed into 8 o'clock at night that night, and there were grasshoppers hitting me, frogs, toads. I could smell wild pigs in the bush. It was confronting, but my recovery came full circle. So my best riding time was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon till 8 o'clock at night. So that was fantastic, because there was no one on the road, and the guys just sat with the vehicle, 30 so meters or whatever had to be back, with the lights on, nothing else, just all the dragonflies and the grasshoppers knew where to hit me though. But yeah, and that was the north side of Queensland. There was when we started to get towards Western Australia, the cyclone Isla was hitting, and so the cyclone changed all the wind patterns with the heat and that. So I probably was getting still the same amount of time, but I wasn't getting the right amount of the kilometres I wanted done, because we had to stop again and get the crew safe out of the way of the cyclone that was coming. And slowly, as I went around Australia, we started to get down to the bottom where it was colder and winter was coming in. So there were the daylight hours just reduced, and then it became a problem with fatigue as the drivers, and a safety issue for with the trucks in the behind being able to see us. And so we sort of came back down to definitely 7 hours on the road, and my crew chief had to call it that last light we'd have to stop. And then as we got into the really built up areas back through Melbourne, it was really a toss up between sunset and last light, depending on how many trucks we had.
Well, Stephen Dobby,
Yes,
I think you might know him, do you?
I do know Steve very well, and I think we changed the bike tires 3 times, and I had no flats the entire way around. I had no flat tires, no flats. But the follow vehicles had 7 accumulated flat tires.
Yes, well, and I expect, well, you drive on the other side of the road. I'm guessing that those
the correct side
on the left-hand side of the car, were they?
Yes, well, over here we may drive on the left-hand side of the road, but we also ride on what's left of the road after the floods. There's not a lot left.
Yeah. Flat tires are a common occurrence for follow vehicles because you're driving off the side of the road. Who knows what's going on? Thanks.
We even had a bolt.
And anybody else got their question or comment, please put it either in Facebook or YouTube, either one. Steve did it in Facebook, but you can do it in YouTube, and we can see it here. We'd love to have you make a comment. Thanks a lot, Stephen. My question, you talked about grasshoppers and toads and so forth. Did you run into any other larger wildlife while riding?
Physically, no. I didn't physically run into them, but yes, there was some wildlife around Australia. There were water buffaloes, a lot of Brahman cows, the big cattle. Brahmans that are the north side of Australia, north of the tick line, because they cope better with cattle ticks. And snakes, oh my gosh, the snakes in Australia are alive and well. They come out around about 3 o'clock. There were plenty of skippies or kangaroos, and I had 2 very, very close encounters with 2 very large kangaroos. One was like, seriously, which way am I going? this close to the bike, and she looked at me. Look, they can be if they're fighting and mating and are threatened, but this I think it was a female. She was just sitting there eating. She saw me, I saw her, and I just kept my line, and she did the same thing, and she went one way and I headed my way, but it could have gone wrong. With lights, it was dark. It could have gone wrong. And the other time it was in the rain, and this was a big roo. That also could have gone very, very wrong. But just hold my line and assume that they know what they're doing. A couple of dingoes. The bird life was, when people say what was the best thing, the bird life around Australia is just astonishing. I'd do it again tomorrow if I had the money.
Dingoes, I believe, are very primitive dogs, aren't they?
Yeah, they look very much. Yeah, they have a look like some other dogs, but they're not. Yeah, they're very.
Yeah, they're kind of closer to what we would call a wolf here, probably.
Yeah, short-haired and yeah.
They're a canine, but they're
Those were the first two I've actually seen. Oh, thank you, Bruce. Bruce was one of my crew.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Amazing accomplishment. Of course it is.
And congratulations too, Bruce. You're part of that crew.
You're one of your crew members. Well,
Yeah.
if we would have been on top of everything, we might have got your crew chief in here. Frankly, I tried to do that today, but I had to get up way before breakfast, and
he's probably online. He's probably watching.
Well, if the crew chief is watching, I want you to chime in here, please. We want to hear from you. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah. Bruce is actually going to be crewing for me on another adventure I've got coming up too. So
okay, well, we'll get to that in just a moment here. By the way, folks, those of you who have followed my ins and outs, my throat is much better.
Same.
We actually found out what's causing it, and I've got a little cure in place, but it's much, much better. Now, where was I?
We were talking about the wildlife.
Yeah, talking about wildlife.
The crocodiles, by the way, just so you know, is I had actually hoped that my crew, if they had any downtime, would be able to hop into some of the water holes that you are able to swim in, but because of all the flooding, the crocodiles are all displaced, so you don't know where they are. There's 50,000 wild crocodiles in all different places.
So they do come out on the highway, do they?
Well, if there's water there, if there's a river there, I have seen that they can cross where the rivers are when they're flooding. Yeah, so I have seen that happens. But I was more worried about the wild pigs than anything else.
Now, the one thing, and by the way, I was going to ask you, we had a little glitch before we got on the air, and so I didn't get to ask a couple questions I generally like to do ahead of time. But so I'll do this. Do you have a report on the World UltraCycling website?
I do.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, I certainly do have a report with Guinness World Records, and I can check with Joe because he's the president of
okay,
WOCA
well,
too.
I can check, and but in the show notes at ucm.bike, show notes for this show, you will see a link to a newspaper story about your ride. It's probably not as extensive as the WUCA report. I'll check the website once we're off the air, and if I can find it, I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. But that'll take me a little time to get there.
I'll just send you an email because I've got a link to it from Larry Osland from Records.
I'll put those in the show notes so you can find it easily. But as I recall reading your report, I don't know if it was on WCA or that news story, you had another challenge when it comes to traffic, did you not?
I had lots of traffic.
Australian traffic.
As in trucks?
As in trucks. Well, let me just say, one of my good friends, I don't know if you know him or not, Steve Berling from Sydney, had an encounter with a road train up over in Perth or somewhere in the western part of the country, wound up in the hospital with some very severe surgery. And he suggested to me when we were talking about it that the road trains can be quite a challenge. Now, I don't know, but I know you remarked about this.
Yeah. Look, when we left Queensland, one of my crew said to me, there's a truck behind Lesa, he's about to pass. So the truck passed. So Rob, you and I got different ideas of what makes a truck and what makes a big truck. It's a big truck. It was not a big truck. It was only a double. And I said, when we get to Western Australia,
only a double.
There's only a double, yeah. When they get to Western Australia, you've got triples and quads, and the triples, are the doubles with a dog. And once you get the third trailer on the back, and there's a bit of swing, the driver has no control over that last vehicle. If it's swinging, it's really dangerous. And you know how I was saying how close I came to the Roo? There were a couple of times where I was very close to some of those trucks, and it was very confronting. And I wanted to make sure I was coming home to my family, and that was, it was really scary. There were a couple of times where I sat down and cried. It was scary, and I mean, like, I was making history, so you know, you can't. What else can you do? This is something you've got to suck up and put your big girl pants on for. But there was one time when I crossed a bridge, and I had the metal guard.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the truck saw me or just passed my follow car and just was rude or whatever, but I had the same amount of distance between the side of the bridge, my bike, and the truck, and in one lane with no thing. So I like, it must have been, in total, I must have had 20 centimeters on one side clearance
Wow.
and 20 centimeters on the other, and with a
My
big
goodness.
truck going past. You know, that was a close call. I called my
And then
friend
there's the
who,
wind that they throw off too.
yeah, and descending with the wind. The Zentus wheels are fantastic, but I had to change them in some spots because the crosswinds would hit me, and there you get it was actually the oncoming trucks that caused the most trouble with the winds. If the wind was coming at me
Yeah.
from, say, 1-2 o'clock, and a truck would pass with four the quads, they'd interrupt that wind for so long that when they'd pass, the wind would hit me so hard, and I get like a double wall, and I just kept thinking I was going to go down. And I kept wanting to slow down to try and see, okay, have I got this manageable? You know, trying to go through each time it happened, and this was time after time, going through each time it happened, what can I do differently? And what am I not doing? What am I, and Joe was always available, and he was great on all those sorts of things. So, yeah, Joe, my coach.
This gives me the heebie-jeebies just sitting here hearing you talk about it. I mean, I think all of us out there have been in some scary situations. Here in the United States, Lesa, I said the big problem is old guys like me driving RVs, and we don't always know how big that thing is. I had one encounter in North Carolina, which gave me.
Yeah. Well, that was actually one of the things. I actually felt most of the trucks, and there are a lot of trucks out there, I felt they were the silent crew, but I was more nervous about the caravans coming past. It wasn't so much the caravans; it was actually the mirrors on the side that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
Those were the things that they came out quite wide, and it was more the mirrors I was
They
worried
rent
about.
these things. They're not familiar with them, and don't realize how big they are.
Yeah, we had, as you know, I had the cyclone, but the other thing that was happening in Western Australia was a solar eclipse, a massive solar eclipse, and there were 50,000 caravans coming to that. I can promise you that not 50,000 of those people in the caravans knew what they were doing, because they were lost, and I'd watch them go past me 1,000 times and back up roads, and they had no idea.
So my sense of Australia, again, I've not been there, so it's just what I read in the comic books. You range from sort of a tropical country in the north. Is it not semi-tropical?
Look, I'm saying the weather is tropical north, way up above the road that I was actually on. So you get close to the perimeter of a tropical forests and stuff with the across the top. But most of the roads that I was actually on, fell below that point. They were already, there was one road, sorry, I'm going to cough. There was one road called the Gibb River, which still flooded, that I couldn't get up to. And it's not really for a road bike. And just, but so that's very tropical. North of Cairns, down to Townsville, and then you've got very, very arid, and I mean really arid. Halfway down, and so once you sort of Alice Springs down, it's actually like ribbons all the way across.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you ride up through the middle and around, because I've done up through the middle as well, Ayers Rock has similar formations all the way across to Western Australia. So, but they're not as spectacular, obviously, as Uluru. But yeah, it's just all the same. And then down the bottom is more a different sort of desert across the Nullarbor.
Now, anybody out there, if you've got a question or comment, put it in now, because there's a little bit of delay between the time you put it in and the time it shows up here. And every time we do a show, it seems like after we've gone off the air, 2 or 3 comments come in. So get them in right now before we wind this show up, which we're going to do here in a little bit. So please get them in now so we can post them. Well, I have a lot of questions about this, but again, I'm going to defer to the news story and the show notes, and I'll try to get that report in, a link to that as well. And just remind people, if you haven't yet, now's a good time to join the World UltraCycling Association. Join in the next few days, and you will have your memberships extended through 2024, and you will have, it's a good way to support this wonderful sport of ultracycling. Hey, whether you're going to do a record or not, I'm not going to, but I've got my membership paid for in 2024, and do that as well. Again, in the show notes, you'll see a link to World UltraCycling Association. Please join to support this wonderful sport of ultracycling. So get that in. Now, my important question to you, Lesa, is what next?
So I'm heading off to Port Augusta in April, and I'm going to try and do Port Augusta to Darwin and set a female record there. There'll probably be so it's point to point. I'm heading with some friends first to Tasmania and doing a bit around Tasmania in March. And maybe after then do something with Joe. So Joe Barr, and see what he's up to, and head somewhere and helping crew for him for a bit.
Now, what you said, Port Augusta to Darwin, that would be south to north, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Across the
straight, what we call in Australia, up the guts.
What do you call it?
Up the guts.
Up the guts.
Up the guts of Australia. We're going up the guts.
Yeah, you
it's Australian. It's just how we are.
You folks have such wonderful ways of saying
I know,
things.
right?
I love it. I love it. And you've been in touch with Joe a little more recently than I have, perhaps, regarding how he's coming along. What do you know? How's he doing?
He is back on the bike. He had a really high speed fall, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not saying anything that he wouldn't, want disclosed. And I know that he was traveling. It took him basically a whole day to get to hyperbaric chamber to have treatment for all the cracks that he suffered on his hips. He didn't need surgery, and he was telling me that for 3 times a week he would make this trip, and each treatment was 2 hours long. So it's kind of like in a tent. And I said to him that I thought he was planning and scheming inside the tent for what he was going to do when he got back out. But but he was able to read and be in there for 2 hours while he's in there repairing, and he's already back on the bike. So that's it goes to show that where there's a will to get back on and do what you do and what you love, you can. And
I'm sure he will, and I'm glad to hear that report. And I think you told me it's 3 hours each way to get to that.
At least 3 hours, because he was telling me it takes a better time of the day, and then a 2 hours treatment.
2 hours in there, so that that kind of shoots a day. And
correct.
We wish Joe well. He's such an important part of the thing. I think I got a comment in here. Chuck Smith. Hi, Chuck. How are you? Our Australian bike advocates.
I don't know.
Chuck is head of the Ohio Bike federation here, and a good friend of mine.
Okay.
I think he's probably asking whether there are, whether there's a good bicycle organization promoting cycling and so forth there in Australia.
Well, look, we do have we have some really amazing bikeways and quite a lot of stuff with Australian cycling. What we don't have is really a lot of ultra cycling races. We had the Indy Pacific Wheel Race, which is still has some wonderful people keep going out there. It's called the Indy Pacific Wheel Ride, and Joe and I are talking about seeing how we can't get Walker behind that and helping support with some trail angels and things like that. Law in Australia it's not too bad. I'm not sure what the last word is there, Chuck, but
Yeah.
it's the laws. I think it's the reasoning behind when a man died in the Indy Pacific Wheel Race, they decided that became an issue. But we can ride on the roads. Most of them, Queensland, the state I'm in, we're not allowed on the motorways and tollways, but there's quite a big shoulder all the way around the rest of the country. There's some sections that obviously were quite dangerous, and it was hard with a follow car, but just as a cyclist it might be okay, but with a follow car it became quite dangerous, which is why I'm actually starting from Port Augusta and going from Port Augusta up to Darwin and not doing Adelaide to Port Augusta. It's just so high and dense, the traffic there. It's a massive corridor. In fact, Port Augusta is called the Crossroads. So that's why I'm leaving that, because it's just with a follow vehicle, it's just the potential to have some injuries, and it's not worth it. So Port Augusta up, that will be it. There's quite a bit of cycling happening in Australia. I'm pretty impressed with the way the infrastructure is going around Australia.
I think if I put words in Chuck's mouth, he's been his organization's been a strong advocate for getting proper laws here in Ohio to protect cyclists. We have now what they call the 3-foot law that you must. Do you have any groups?
We do. Look, there's a whole
traffic safety for cyclists.
It's all exactly. Yes, exactly. Look, there's Amy. There's a thing called the Meter Matters, and they were pushing down in Victoria to get some laws, and I think they were. What is Amy Gillett? I think it's Amy Gillett, and I can't believe it just took me, because I was thinking I was doubling up with a Gillett, but they've been pushing for the Meter Matters, and that then put in place all the other states. So we have a 1.5 meters, which is law now, and but I can tell you that even though that's law, there's law and there's feasibility too in some of these spots, like where those trucks were. They're supposed to give me 1.5, but if they don't have space, there's only, if there's a truck coming the other way and I'm there, what can they do? They're traveling a lot faster. They've got something like 80 wheels, and the big ones.
Yeah.
And I've got 2, and my follow car's got 4.
I've seen videos of those road trains, and the trailers are actually longer than what we have here in the United States, and so you put 4 of those together, you've got quite a issue to deal with. And like I said,
and they can't stop. They can't stop. Like they just cannot stop.
Yeah. Listen, I would like to get in touch with one of your crew members for this Across Australia thing. And you may have seen some things we've done before with covering this during it. All we need is a willing person with a phone, and we can do some real-time coverage. Now, I realize that in that route, you probably have a lot of places where you don't have connection.
It's a very remote, but there are spots through it. Yeah.
Okay, and we can work with
pretty
that.
Good in
we
Australia.
Have found that we have figured out how to work with that, and so don't forget us. We'll try to cover.
No, we'll do that. Yeah.
We want to thank you for being with us.
Hey, I have to tell you, I know that I saw that you've got in your program, you've got Vince coming up soon with Infinity Bike Seat, and Al Jefferson. He's a friend of mine from up in Townsville. You might have heard of Al. He put me onto the Infinity Bike Seat when after he won RAM, And look, that's the seat that got me around.
Well, I'm sure
amazing.
I'm sure Vince will be glad to hear that. And we don't generally advocate any selling any particular product. It's just the fact that Infinity seats have become the seat for ultracycling. And
it really was a difference.
And we think that they're worth endorsing. We don't get anything back from it. I mean,
I just know that he was actually on your program coming up.
Coming up on December 3rd, we're going to have Dr. Vince from Infinity Seats here. And I just want to say that when he talks about Infinity Seats, he starts down with the shoes and works his way up.
He helped with the back seat.
It's just not adjusting the seat properly. It's the whole
thing.
Yeah. And the stories we have here, Lesa, of people being salvaged by Infinity seats are just amazing. We'll get into more. I don't want to. That's all.
I know. I've heard from Al some stuff too. So.
We don't want to get into that, but we want to thank you for being with us, Lesa. This has really been delightful. Let's say we'll stay in touch. Hey, don't go away when we go off the air. We'll chat for just a moment. But want to thank all the viewers for being here. Those of you who are live, those of you who posted questions, we appreciate that a great deal. And some of you will see this at another time. If you have a question or a comment for Lesa, put them in the comments section of either Facebook or YouTube, and we will get those to Lesa to answer. So, Jim, sorry we couldn't be with you this morning. We love you, guy. And with that, Lesa, we're going to go find our friend Greg Zuber to send us out of here. All right, we'll see you.
Yep.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.